Buckeye Live with your host, Radio and Television Broadcasting Hall of Fame journalist, George Lehner.
And welcome in to Buckeye Live. I'm George Lehner. The Buckeyes are 2-0 and headed to Dallas this week to face TCU Saturday night in a nationally televised game on ABC. Still no Urban Meyer, but who can argue with the success of the way things are going? Jay Richardson joins me as always. And Jay, how about that performance over Rutgers Saturday?
Things going on with the weather, but for him to execute the way he did, for the offense to look as smooth as it did, and for the defense to look like, you know, they actually were playing organized defense with Jordan Fuller back, and you see Tough Borland on a much higher pitch count. It just changed the whole shape of how the defense looked. Obviously, anybody with the last name Bosa can't be blocked, and we could see that. Chase Young looked vicious. If he could just calm down and not get so excited, he could stay in the game a little longer. But they didn't really need him because once he got his 2 sacks and Nick got his 2 sacks, there was just nothing they could do with those guys. It's really a nice shade of things to come for this defensive line.
And offensively with Dwayne Haskins and I thought Ohio State's offensive line played well, and the skilled players are just – I mean, they're just off the charts.
Yeah, it's unreal how much talent there is. You know, you saw J.K. Dobbins get it going with over 75 yards rushing, and he had a couple big plays that were called back because of a hold or some sort of issue. But, I mean, he had a one-handed grab that I thought to myself, there's a kid that's going to make somebody really happy at the next level with his ability to make plays out of the backfield and, you know, as a receiver. He's just a playmaker. And then, you know, Weber staying on track, just grounding the ball through between the tackles, making nice physical runs. And Johnny Dixon, to be able to get behind the defensive backs, get stacked, and then just continue to accelerate through the football and make plays whenever they went single high safety with no help, that's just a mismatch. And I think he's somebody that we're going to have to keep watching because he's getting better every week.
Jay, I try not to really get over the top hyped about much of anything, but
sure.
this football team really has me excited.
It's kind of hard not to, George. You watch them perform, you watch them come out, you hear all the stuff in the offseason about how good they're going to look. I was hearing from guys in that building, coaches, assistants, guys that I've known for years, guys who've been with the program for years, pulling me aside and going, Jay, this might be the best group we've ever had. And I'm going, calm down. You know, we've heard that before. Listen, you know, there's no Zeke, there's no Joey Bosa. Relax. There's no Mike Thomas. And they're going, we got a group of guys that I feel like as a unit could be even better. And I'm going, we'll see. But I'm secretly kind of excited because I'm going, man, what if it's true? And then for the first two, you know, the first game they put up 77, second game 52, and for them to come out and look so dominant offensively, that's what's surprising. You know, you expect the defense to come out and play well. Defense is a little bit easier to perform well at early because you just come out and play. You just rely on your athletes and, you know, guys get to the football. Whereas offense, there's timing and there's chemistry and the O-line has to gel. They're on an accelerated timeline. It seems like the O-line is just putting it together from the moment they get out there. They're just crushing people. And I know the competition's not where we want it yet. So right. you have to kind of taper it back with all the praise. But I'm with you, George. When it comes to execution, these guys are going out there and they're just flat out getting it done. So I don't know. It's hard not to be excited.
I continue to be impressed with the way this coaching staff is handling game day without Urban on the sidelines.
Yeah, I think Ryan Day has done a masterful job of keeping the kids focused. Game day operations, very underrated part of the game. When you talk about clock management and you talk about personnel substitutions, being able to stay on schedule, as they say, stay on track, keep guys on the sidelines organized. You know, everybody seems calm, and I'm going to keep saying this. they haven't been put in any sort of crunch time situations or a high leverage moment yet. We know that.
Right.
But you still have to give Ryan Day credit for not screwing anything up yet, for going out there and just, like I said, executing from the sideline, getting calls in fast. You don't see a lot of delay of games. Usually with young quarterbacks, you'll see some delay of games early on because there's just not that, he's not comfortable yet. And sometimes there's issues with, the microphone and the headset. Any little issue, you don't see anything. It's just a smooth downhill football game for the Buckeye offense.
It really is hard to believe. What was the strength as far as you're concerned Saturday, and what was the weakness as far as you're concerned from what you saw out of Ohio State?
So far this season, right? The strength is the quarterback play, which we weren't positive what it was going to be. We weren't sure what it was going to look like. Are they going to come out and still do a lot of RPOs and continue to run the quarterback, and or are they going to come out and let Dwayne showcase his arm talent? And sure enough, we were able to see Dwayne, be the arm talent he is, watch how he masterfully executes the offense. They keep a very, very good pace offensively. So their strength right now, as far as the entire football team, is one, the offensive line, / running game, and Dwayne Haskins. These receivers are catching the football. They're showing up for him, but he's orchestrating the whole deal. It's funny because now I'm looking at it coming into the season going, oh, yeah, the defense is easily going to be the strength. But no, it seems like the defense is coming on, and they looked good last week. But that seems to be the place where, they actually could stand to improve a bit.
Who's your player of the game offensively and defensively from that game over Rutgers?
Oh, that's difficult. Everyone played well. We know that. Offensively, I'll say this, it's hard to give it defensively to the same guy again, but Nick Bosa,
it is what it is.
It is what it is, right? Nick has such an impact on a football game. I don't think people quite understand when an entire offense, an offensive coordinator has the game plan for one guy, it effectively shuts down any kind of running action you want to do to that side, any kind of passing, you're on a clock. He's in that quarterback's head. Hell, he took the quarterback out of the game. So to me, that's more valuable than anything you can do in a football game, to take the other team's, most important player, take that more important piece off the chessboard. You got to give it to Nick Bosa. He's just so dominant. It's almost laughable against teams of this caliber.
Yeah.
Now, offensively, what else are you going to say? Dwayne Haskins, the kid, what, he went 30 for 33, or I think, or as a unit, I think maybe they went 30 for 33. So the quarterback play, but that's all Dwayne, he throwing receivers open, being able to audible at the line of scrimmage. He's a youngster, but he's playing like a savvy veteran, and he's on pace to win a Heisman right now. So yeah, easily Dwayne, easily Nick.
And going back to Nick, just even so briefly, they took their tight end, and Rutgers did, and moved their tight end all the way across to block Bosa. These teams that Ohio State will play this year, they're doing anything they can to try and come up with a scheme to distract Bosa. And it's going to be interesting to see as these weeks go on just how effectively these strategies are going to be, if effectively at all.
Well, it's something that good defensive ends are going to go through. Believe it or not, George, for a brief moment in my senior year, I was actually a pretty good defensive end. So I know a little bit about how teams scheme to kind of, disrupt a pass rusher's flow, his rhythm. You're not going to stop Nick Bosa, but what you can do is interrupt his rhythm, right? Interrupt his timing with chip blocks from backs, motioning a tight end across the formation, pre-snap, ball snaps, tight end stays in there for a quick second, then releases. They're going to find any way they can to slow this monster down. The problem, and the only problem with that plan, is there's another guy on the other side wearing number 2 on his chest named Chase Young, and you can't stop them both. That was the thing with myself and Vernon Golston my senior year, right? Teams would scheme for Vern because he was a high sack number guy, and then I'd get the one-on-one and get back there and cause pressure. So when you have 2 guys that can dominate, it makes that very difficult. But Nick by himself is a load. They tried to leave a tight end on him early in the game, and he almost ate the quarterback alive. You don't leave a tight end on a guy like that.
Lots to talk about tonight, as always. We'll get into Buckeye football a lot more in a couple minutes. And then later in the hour, we will have one of the greatest Buckeyes to ever put on a Buckeye uniform, the one, the only, Pete Johnson.
Hey.
And Steve Hellwagon from 247.com will join us to go over the first couple of weeks and what his impressions are headed into week number 3. So we'll take a quick break and continue our discussion on Buckeye football in a minute. It's Buckeye Live on EBSN Online.
All right.
The Rivalry, a historic showdown between two great teams and two passionate fan bases. This season, join Germain Honda of Dublin and Germain Honda of Ann Arbor as we relive the greatest moments in the history of the game, with special offers for listeners. Discover Honda's award-winning lineup of cars and SUVs, like the 2017 CR-V, starting at just over $24,000. But rest assured, whether you're in Ann Arbor or Columbus, you can count on Germain Honda to deliver the right car, the right price, the right way.
It really is the difference between winning and losing, being able to get your hands inside, defeat blockers, and it works at all positions and all skill levels. I'm Joey Bosa. See the difference in your game.
He Richardson. We are here every Monday night from 7 to 8. You can watch and listen to us every week on EBSN Online.
Yep.
Through our website. You can go to YouTube. You can go to Facebook. You can go to Instagram. All the social media platforms. We're right here for you every Monday night at 7 o'clock. And year-round, by the way, because we talk Buckeye basketball and everything else. This week, the fourth-ranked Buckeyes hit the road to play number 15 TCU in Jerry's World, an 8 o'clock Saturday night kickoff on ABC. Huge game for Ohio State to showcase its talents to all of the United States on national television, prime time. Jay, have you ever been to Jerry Jones's little playground there in Dallas?
Oh, absolutely, George. That. My third year playing for the Oakland Raiders was Jerry World's first year, in production, and it was the first time they unveiled that new monstrosity of a venue.
TV.
Yeah, and it's funny. I tell players all the time who are going to play there because we learned it was a Thanksgiving Day game, and we're walking down a red carpet leaving the visitors' locker room. The visitors' locker room, by the way, is nicer than any locker room I've ever been in my entire life. It was like a lounge, all they were missing was cocktails and free cigars. It was beautiful. And then you leave the locker room and they have you walking down a red carpet like you're going to a movie premiere or something. And the red carpet is lined with fans, and you walk through a bar, an actual bar, where they're serving alcohol and popping bottles of champagne. So people are standing on either side of the red carpet, and we're in full gear marching out onto the field. And, people are spilling drinks and everybody's already buttered up. And you're like, dude, it seems like a nightclub, an oversized nightclub that just happens to have a football field in the middle of it. That's the environment you're talking about playing a game in. And then you finally get up onto the platform where you walk onto the field. You see that huge, ridiculous scoreboard. There's go-go dancers, posted everywhere. I mean, it's a party. And then you got to remember, we got a game to play. We should probably, lock in a little bit here and get ready, because you want to take off your pads and start partying. But there's a game to play. I think the venue is going to be not overwhelming for the Buckeyes. They played in a big-time venue. If anything, I think TCU is going to walk in there and go, oh, boy, it's going to be interesting. I know it's like a home game for them.
Right.
But just the scope and size of it is going to be very, very, impactful. But at the end of the day, Buckeyes going to go out in that field, and we're going to see the difference in talent level right away.
TCU has a very fast-paced, productive offense.
Sure.
They have quick, skilled players, a pretty good offensive line. It's going to be an interesting test for Ohio State's defense that got kind of back on their heels in game one, but made a lot of improvement last week.
Yeah, George, I was just remarking other day. I said, listen, this will be Ohio State's first test against a truly mobile quarterback, right? You got a kid, Robinson, back there for TCU. He leads the team in rushing. So you got a guy who can put the ball where it needs to be. I don't think he has an elite arm. I don't think he's, incredibly accurate, but I think he's good enough. I think he's very, he can throw the ball. But when that pocket breaks down, when he feels a little bit of pressure, he gets uncomfortable, he darts off, and he can outrun linebackers no problem. So I think this will be a nice test to see, Harrison, Borland, can these guys, keep him in front of them, maintain coverage, maintain eye control, and can this defensive line squeeze the pocket? There's a difference between trying to go rush a quarterback and get him off the spot and get a sack and trying to just crush the pocket and make him throw from a well. He's a guy you want to throw from a well. You don't want to just go for a sack because he'll dart off and then you got problems. You kind of want to keep him in the pocket and force him to be a pocket quarterback, which I don't know if he's there yet. So I think that'll be the challenge for the defense.
TCU beat Southern 55-7 in week 1 and beat SMU 42-12 last weekend. And, there's a lot of respect out there for Gary Patterson, the 18-year veteran coach at TCU. He really knows what he's doing. They've won 10 games, I think probably at least 10 of his 18 seasons. They're a pretty good ball club.
Very, very good ball club. They've always been, a contender in that conference. And a few years ago, they were right there with a chance to get into the Final Four, get into the playoffs. And I think it might have been Ohio State that actually was the reason they didn't. TCU, somebody that it will be a nice, precursor to getting into the thick of the Big Ten. It'll be nice to play somebody with that kind of talent level to really threaten these guys a little bit. And I'm talking about the Buckeyes, to really give them, I don't know if they'll give them a scare, but it's going to be important that they see a graduated, elevation in their level of competition. Plus, first road game, everyone looks good at home, especially young guys. The biggest test for young guys, how do they perform on the road when the crowd's yelling at you and you're in a big-time venue? This is a perfect test because it's not a road game against, say an Oklahoma or, somebody from a couple years ago where that's a big test early on. This is just the right amount of testing for them, right? You're on the road. You got a good program, but not an elite program. So I think it's the perfect timing for this kind of a game. And I've been saying it all preseason. This Buckeye schedule sets up very, very nicely for a playoff run. So I think this will be just the next test in a series of tests. And then it'll be time to get into the Big Ten, which so far, George, doesn't look great.
Last week, Jay, we talked about some of the defensive issues we saw against Oregon State. In your opinion, did they effectively clean up those issues against Rutgers Saturday?
Yeah, they cleaned up some issues. I think the biggest thing, though, George, was personnel. When you put Jordan Fuller back in there at that safety spot, and you now it's like a cornerstone of the defense. You get a guy with very talented, some experience, sharp guy. Everyone else kind of settled back in. It seemed like all the other DBs settled in. And then listen out for this name because he had a nice turnover in this game. But Sean Wade, who's a redshirt freshman, he's a nickelback. He's a cornerback. He's ultimately, I think, going to evolve into a very, very good safety. And he's somebody that got some playing time and made the best of it as a youngster and got out there and got him a pick. This is all that needed to be happening was just a couple different, key personnel decisions, or health situations, I should say. And then guys just playing smart, getting good angles, tackling at the football, rallying, making sure we plug up the right holes. That's all. And by the way, George, that back that the Buckeyes saw last week in Oregon State, he's still running right now. He had another really good game this past Saturday. So it wasn't just that Ohio State, didn't play technique sound perfectly. It was also they were going against a pretty damn good back.
Yeah. And we talked about Dwayne Haskins in week number 2. How about week number 2 of Tate Martell? I mean, he was named the Big Ten co-freshman player of the week.
I was excited to see Tate Martell get a chance to not just get out there and play, but go out there and perform well. And he had that 150-yard pass that we saw. We all know he can run around. He's got that suddenness, they call it. He's quick laterally for a quarterback especially. But to see him chuck that thing 50 yards to albeit a wide-open receiver, but still, it was a great read. He launched it out there, made a great play. The best thing I saw Tate Martell do was run to the sideline, get absolutely smashed. It looked like he broke a rib. Clearly he had the wind knocked out of him. He laid there for a while, popped back up, and then 2 plays later scrambled for a 51-yard touchdown. That tells me a lot about what's in his chest and about his toughness and heart. I love that. I don't want Buckeye fans to start, because someone tweeted it already on Saturday, why does Ohio State love a quarterback controversy? Stop it. There is no controversy. We know who the quarterback is. All OSU's trying to do is give future defensive coordinators something to game plan for, something to think about. So when you have a Tate Martell out there and maybe minutes that aren't as high leverage, situations, but he can go out there and perform like that. If you're a coordinator, for Michigan State or something down the road, you're going, crap, they might have a package for this kid. That's one more thing you got to plan for and practice, which takes up time in your practice schedule. That's all they're trying to do, and it's working great.
And they're trying to keep him happy too.
Sure,
you want a happy Tate Martell. You don't want a Tate Martell that's going to be thinking about transferring because he's not a starting quarterback. You want to make sure he's happy.
You want to make sure he's happy, yeah.
How about the offensive play calling? I think it's a great mix of the run and pass and great passing routes.
George, we've been saying this for feels like a couple years now. Let the running backs run the football and let the quarterback throw the football. Let guys do what they do best. And what you're seeing from Ryan Day, and I'm not going to give Ryan all the credit. I'm sure he was there all week. So I'm sure he knows this. It's not like the game plan on Saturday was a surprise to Urban Meyer. He kind of helped orchestrate that too. But I love that they're letting Dwayne Haskins showcase what an arm talent he has the potential to be and do what he does best and not put him in positions to get hurt by calling these designed QB runs that can get him killed. The offensive line, to be shuffling guys around like they had to do in the preseason, to see big Michael Jordan down there at center at 6'7", and to see the holes. He's opening up holes I could drive my truck through. I mean, these are situations, not elite defensive lines they've gone against yet, but still, the execution, the play calling, the timing of certain play calls, to be able to bang the ball up in the middle, get meaningful yards, from J.K. and Mike Weber, and then to come back with a nice play action. Right when you have Johnny, Dixon breaking free in single man coverage on the edge and the stack over the receiver or over the defensive back and to get that separation and make the catch, Dwayne puts it right on the money. That's football. Like that's what we've been looking for. We've been looking for a true, not this power spread, just a true, pro style spread offense where we're actually throwing the football down the field and running the football with the running backs. That's football. When you have the playmakers and you have the pieces, you don't need to trick anybody. Just go play.
Yeah. And those plays were just so perfect.
Yeah.
I mean, the blocking, the timing of the route, the execution of the pass. I mean, it was perfection.
Yeah, it's all about execution. When you have better players, you don't have to scheme too much. All you have to do is call the right play at the right time and then watch the guys execute it. When they do that, it looks dominant. You're talking about 77 points and 52 points. I mean, this is
right.
These guys are on pace to set records already. I'm not, they might have that one tough game or two tough games here, and I'm hoping they do because they need that to build character as a team, and I want to see how they react. I'm hoping TCU's defense actually brings it in the first half because I want to see Haskins in a situation where maybe they're down in the game or maybe, they're not lighting up, and I want to see him have to throw a pick and have to come back and bounce back and play well against a good opponent. I think that's good for a young team. But right now they look like no one can touch them.
Coming up in a couple of minutes, two outstanding guests, Buckeye Hall of Fame running back Pete Johnson and 24/7's Steve Hellwagon. We'll talk about the Buckeyes heading into TCU and what these guys think of the first couple of weeks of Buckeye football. Coming up in just a couple minutes, it's Buckeye Live on EBSN Online.
The rivalry, a historic showdown between two great teams and two passionate fan bases. This season, join Germain Honda of Dublin and Germain Honda of Ann Arbor as we relive the greatest moments in the history of the game, with special offers for listeners. Discover Honda's award-winning lineup of cars and SUVs, like the 2017 CR-V, starting at just over $24,000. But rest assured, whether you're in Ann Arbor or Columbus, you can count on Germain Honda to deliver the right car, the right price, the right way.
It really is the difference between winning and losing, being able to get your hands inside, defeat blockers, and it works at all positions and all skill levels. I'm Joey Bosa. See the difference in your game.
With Buckeye Live, week number 3 of the season, as the Buckeyes head to Dallas to play the 15th ranked TCU Horned Frogs Saturday night, 8 o'clock on ABC. ESPN's College Game Day show will showcase OSU and TCU this week. And I am very excited tonight to have Buckeye great Pete Johnson in the house with us tonight.
Hey.
And Steve Hellwagon from 24/7. Guys, thanks for taking the time to join Jay and I tonight. How you guys doing?
Great, thank you.
Great to be here.
Well, it's good to see both of you. Pete, let's start with you. What's your take on this Buckeye team so far this year?
Enjoyable. I just love watching them. The guys, and they're ready to play. And the passing game is different. Remember last year we talked, and I said they want to get the ball to more than one receiver. You got to go to the I formation, which they've accomplished, and I'm excited.
Pete, I don't think they're going to lose a game.
I hope not. They shouldn't with the talent they have on the team and them big offensive linemen. Oh, my goodness.
And the schedule.
Yeah. A couple of them teams that you thought may give them a real difficult game have already lost with Michigan and Michigan State. So, obviously, we know they're going to give Ohio State their best shot the week that they play them. But the combination of offense and defense I've seen so far is pretty amazing. But, again, some of it's who they played, too.
That's true.
Steve, are you surprised? And Steve's mic isn't working, Jay, just so you know, for some reason. And if you guys want to share mics or whatever. But, Steve, are you at all surprised with the dominance that you've seen from Ohio State?
Yeah, I think so a little bit, George. I think, again, you take into account they're playing Oregon State, they're playing Rutgers, two of the lesser teams, I think, in the FBS ranks. And certainly, right now, Rutgers, got a long way to go if they're going to, even make it to a bowl game. It seemed like to me their defense didn't put up much of a fight at all, and their offense couldn't move the ball. So, what can you do? But for me, from week 1 to week 2, I thought the defense made just a tremendous improvement, and I think it helped. Obviously, that Jordan Fuller was back out there at safety. He made a big difference, I think, in terms of what he brings to the table. And they just, they didn't have some of the breakdowns. I mean, my goodness, they give up 3 big plays for touchdowns against Oregon State and only gave up a field goal in this game. So I look at it and I just say, I think the improvement that was made from one week to the next, particularly on defense, is huge. If they keep that going, I think they're going to be looking really good, particularly going to this game, TCU.
Jay, if you have anything to say, please chime in. I mean, I want all 3 of you guys to talk. But, Pete, aside from the last 2 weeks, it has not been a good summer for Ohio State football, to say the least. What are your thoughts on this whole saga and how it's been handled by the university?
You don't want me to say nothing.
Sure I do.
No, don't.
Hey, let me tell you
Don't
something.
be quiet now.
There's no pill for stupidity. That's the dumbest thing I ever heard. When I heard them talking about they're going to do an investigation, I'm like, what are you investigating? And then for the president of the university to get on live TV and say the coach didn't go far enough, he got to do more than what the police do. That's just stupid.
I agree.
I was so embarrassed. I do my event at the fair every year during the state fair, and people were coming up asking me, and I'm trying to say, look, guys, I don't even want to talk about it. Just get away from me, because it's just stupid. And people look for conversation just to keep it going, and I think they did the right thing when they blocked the media from coming in. That way they can get the players to focus on themselves and what they're going to do. Because once you get out there and you start playing, you're going to change the mindset of everything. They don't even talk about it anymore.
Yeah, I know, George, everyone's heard my point of view on this, and it was basically that I thought OSU dropped the ball when they didn't give him time served and just put him out there week 1 because it keeps the story going. Now, we're going to be waiting every week. It'll be the same kind of narrative, Urban not back yet. When he gets back, what's going to happen? And then once he gets back, it'll be Urban's back. Now let's talk about, the 3 games that he wasn't there and moving forward. How's it going to look? Steve, I want to ask you, what's your take on just the whole offseason saga and everything with Urban, how the university handled it?
Yeah, very difficult situation. I think I agree with what Pete said. For the players, they were insulated from all this, and the kids, I think, are very resilient in these type of things. And if there was ever a time something like this could happen, it's when you got 2 good former head coaches, Schiano, Wilson, there to kind of steer you through troubled water there. And I think Ryan Day has really kind of leaned on those 2 guys. It's great now, obviously, that Urban's back at practice every day. They said he made a tremendous – and that improvement from week 1 to week 2, I think maybe some of that may have had to do with Urban Meyer came in on Monday and put his fist on the table and said, this isn't acceptable here, Greg. 31 points against Oregon State, I mean, just not acceptable. So we saw – and Schiano has much admitted that middle of last week. And so we saw, I think, a remnant of perhaps his first big impart on this team. As far as how they handled it, I think that this was a very small snowball that picked up a lot of speed going downhill and became an avalanche very quickly, a mountain out of a molehill, basically, that it should have never, ever gotten to this point. Did Urban make some mistakes along the way? Yes. But, again, Ohio State left Urban Meyer out here on an island, it seems like to me, and kind of hung him out to dry at times in different parts of this. And I would have liked to have seen a little bit more leadership and support from the president and the athletic director, I think, to help get through this and to really nail down the idea that, mistakes may have been made, but, again, there's only so much that an expectation level can only be so much in a situation like this. You can't dictate or mandate what somebody's personal life is and how they're going to conduct their personal business. It's more their job performances. About the only thing you really, in our day and age, can go on when you're talking about an employee and what you can do with them. So, at any rate, it's almost over. A coach is coming back probably on Monday and probably do his press conference on Monday, and he'll probably be ask some tough questions on Monday, and after that, hopefully it'll be business as normal as it can be after that.
But you know what, Steve? I would disagree with you a little bit in your comment that it's almost over. I think something like this is going to have some long-term ramifications. And we talked about it last week. Drake wanted him fired. And there was a war between, Drake and several Board of Trustees members. One, Drake had, I think, a couple of them on his side, but most of them weren't. And, long term, I just wonder, and I'd be curious to get all your guys' thoughts on this. Long term, what does this do to Urban Meyer? I mean, how does he feel? Because like you said, Steve, they kind of hung him out to dry. I mean, he's out there on an island in no man's land. And here's Drake with the proverbial saw working on the tree limb. And Pete, I'm curious. I've asked a lot of people this, and I'm curious what you say. Do you think Urban coaches at Ohio State next season?
Hey, let me tell you something. They better be glad I didn't hit the lottery. If I'd have hit the lottery, I would have went to Coach Meyer. Hey, how much they paying you? Here. Go tell them where to go. Quit right now. That's just the most dumbest thing. I bet Woody was turning over upstairs. Oh my goodness, it's crazy. Let me say something to you. You got a football coach here to coach football. One of the biggest thing that police officers hate to do is go into domestic violence. That's
exactly right.
We just had 2 of our friends in Westerville. That's what they did. And they got killed. Right. And you know why they got killed? Because that's a community. They knew these people. They have been there before. They never thought the guy was going to snap because they have been there many a time. But you don't know. So how can you ask your football coach to go around, knock on neighbor's door, and ask, hey, don't you see my coach doing? When has he got time to coach? And the first person he's supposed to go to is Gene Smith. So Gene Smith told him who was he supposed to go to? What more can you do? And when Urban said he made a mistake, I think he made a mistake because he saw something was going on after the divorce, and That guy's family. Coach Bruce and Urban, that's family. You take care of family. He sent people to his house, I heard, to get him to come to practice someday. I think that's what he meant about the mistake he made, that he could have did more. But in our day society, everyone wake up in the morning and look for something to be pissed off about instead of looking for something to be happy about. And that's what you get when you try to manage social media. And, you know, we got in the compliance office, they got 500 people. All they do is monitor what social media say. And then you got a president supposed to be so smart, and he react according to social media instead of the people that are around him, the people that he's supposed to know, the people that are really making a difference with these young men. Oh, you know, it's crazy.
Yeah, Pete, I'll say this. The biggest issue I had with how President Drake responded to the situation with Urban and wanting him fired and all that was, you know, the committee got together and they ruled by the book, you know, by the code of conduct. Urban and both Urban and Gene acted in good faith and did everything, you know, ran up the chain of command on the flagpole the way they're supposed to do. So if that's the case, why was there a suspension at all? Why?
Thank you.
The PR situation, right? It was all about image. Nationally, this thing was getting huge traction. ESPN was all over it. You know, Paul Feinbaum was making it his personal business to go after, you know, the entire university. And I guess, you know, Drake felt pressure to react to the PR situation and not to execute what was going on, you know, in the building, which was Urban did his job. That's all you can ask the guy to do is do his job. That's what he did. So I know Urban will look back at this and go, man, the biggest mistake he probably made was even bringing Zach here. But at the same time, he didn't do anything wrong, Urban, and he handled his business the way he was supposed to. He got the news from Gene about everything. So I don't know what you're expecting him to do. You know, Steve, I don't know what your thoughts are on the Drake versus Urban situation. But I think Urban will be coaching here next year.
Yeah, and I would agree. I think that time is going to heal a lot of these wounds, and I think that Urban and Shelley – you know, they love their life, I guess, for lack of a better way of putting it, here in Central Ohio. It is a great place, as we all know, great place to live and work. And they got their whole family here surrounding them. Their son's going to be attending University of Cincinnati to play baseball. About the only scenario I can see where he would not be the coach at Ohio State next year is if the Bengals or the Browns came after him. And again, you know, that's a long way off at the end of the season. We don't want to see anything like that happen, obviously. So I can't, honestly, I can't. I mean, he's not going to leave Ohio State to go coach at another college because, as their own personal saying is, who's got it as good as we've got it? Nobody. And I think that, you know, he's got all these built-in advantages. I mean, you think about what the job involves. Most of it is talent procurement. That is probably the
exactly
the
right.
biggest part of this job, and he's got that pretty well licked right now. They get top 3, top 4 classes every year in the country. They've had the number 2 class 2 years in a row. So you're getting the very best talent, and we're starting to see some of those young guys sprinkle in there as sophomores and freshmen already. And the future looks very bright, I think. Yep. I mean, they've got a quarterback lined up for 2020 from Arizona, Jack Miller, who'll be the future of the program, it seems. So, you know, they've got some very good built-in advantages right here at Ohio State. Why would you crumple that up and throw it away? And you talk about long-term ramifications. You know, people may try and use it against them. That's fine. Do whatever you want to do. But I think Ohio State and the success they're going to have on the football field this season is going to go a long way overshadowing that.
I agree with you, Steve. Good thoughts. Pete, your thoughts on the quarterbacks. Tate Martell, Dwayne Haskins, just unbelievable so far this season.
Well, I'll tell you what, when you was talking about got another quarterback coming in from someone else, and what about the one we have that came in 10 for 10? You know, these guys, and you know what I love the most about this team? They were cheering for each other.
Yeah.
After every play, whether it's defense, special team, offense, whether a player made a mistake, these young men was surrounding them to let them know, hey, look, we're here. We're going to fight this fight together, and that's what you do as a team. That's what a real team does, and that's what I'm excited about because they ain't going to let each other down.
Yeah, the coolest thing I saw, you know, was the camaraderie. I think you're right on that, Pete. It was not a there's no controversy or anything like that. We all know Haskins is the man. He went out there, executed, and the first thing he did when Tate, threw that big 50-yard touchdown pass was run out there and hug him. I mean, these guys are just excited to play football. They're excited for the team they have, and you know when a team knows it's good, and they know what they have in that locker room. And everyone kept saying it before the opener. This team is very angry. They're playing angry in practice. They look hungry. They look like it's them against the world with all the media after them right now. And they're playing like they have something to prove to the whole country. And I think they have to keep that momentum going throughout the entire season.
Guys, let's hand out a couple of grades after the first couple of weeks. Pete, who grades an A on offense and defense? I mean, obviously, you look at Bosa and you look at the quarterbacks, but what about some of these other positions? Who stands out to you offensively and defensively? And conversely, Pete, tell me where you think they need some work offensively and defensively.
They just got to play more. I love the line. I like the way the coaches handle the situation with the players and got them playing together. And I like the support. I give the team an A. Just the way you see that support there. I thought you could feel it just watching it on TV, how those guys feel about each other.
I'll pick it up. I'll say quarterbacks A, running backs probably A-. I don't know that you even have a demerit there. I'm not sure what it would be. No one's really put the ball on the ground yet. Lost a fumble, I don't think. Wide receivers has got to be an A- or an A. Tight ends, I think you could get more out of them, maybe a B. But again, Barry and Farrell both have touchdown catches already. And then the offensive line. I mean, they've had some penalties. They've had some false starts. They've had a couple holding penalties. But you were talking to Pete here a minute ago about the quarterbacks. It's been a clean pocket. And not only that, they have run for a bazillion yards. I mean, I think the offensive line, and it's a revamped offensive line because Jordan moved from guard to center, and he wasn't even really there in the spring. Munford, they weren't sure he was even going to play in the opening game, and he's at left tackle. So you've got a little bit of changes here and there. Pridgeon, first time he's ever really played at the other guard. So, it's basically a revamped offensive line. They're huge. They're averaging something like 6'5", 6'6", and 310 pounds across there. They're bigger than an NFL offensive line. So, and I think several of these guys are obviously going to play in the NFL. I think Jordan's going to play in the NFL next year probably, going out as a third-year guy now that he's moved to center and kind of like Elflein and Price has upped his marketability. I'd say now he can play three positions. So I think the offensive line, you got to give them almost an A- or an A- because of the penalties maybe, but that's why your quarterback's been so successful. They've had all kinds of time. And, defensively, as he said, first game C, second game an A-, I'd say, is how I would kind of grade that. I mean, maybe even an A in the second game, gave up a field goal, and that was it.
Man, I'm glad you wasn't my teacher.
I'm
glad you wasn't
Was I
my
not
teacher.
tough enough, or was I too tough?
Well, look at football.
It's an imperfect game. It's an imperfect game.
And you're going to have time where you're going to have breakdown. And you're going to make mistakes.
You got to give the other guy credit. He's going to beat you at some point.
They recruit guys, and y'all might say those guys ain't as good as our guys, which I'm glad, but they still out there trying. Yeah. And your adrenaline's going, and you want to be perfect, and that's when you make mistakes. But Coach Hayes always say, you're going to make a mistake, make an aggressive mistake. Yeah. Now, I remember I forget who I supposed to block. I just go knock everybody down that I can see with a different color shirt on me. And Coach Hayes said, "Oh yeah, way to go, Pete! Did you see that?" And that,
when in doubt, hit the other guy.
Hit the other guy, but you got to hit him where you knock him on his butt, and you'll be all right.
Yeah, the team is certainly playing physical. One guy I didn't mention earlier was Isaiah Prince at right tackle. I thought is really playing some good football. I remember last year there were moments in the season we thought he might be the weak link. You're talking about somebody that's vastly improved from one year to the next. I think that's a really, really bright spot for the Buckeyes and all of these receivers. I mean, Austin Mack had 5 catches. Johnny Dixon, Terry McLaurin had the huge game one. This receiving core looks like Brian Hartline has them rocking and rolling, and you can tell they all came back because they wanted to play with Dwayne Haskins because they knew the kind of potential he had to be able to operate from the pocket with his arm and they run their routes hard. And then the downfield blocking is one thing I love to see. Benjamin Victor knocking over the other team's corner and safety, while J.K.'s still running behind him. And, Mike Weber had that huge run last week. That was Benjamin Victor on the edge, tossing the guy around, leading to a 50-yard touchdown. That kind of stuff, that kind of effort tells me this team really, really wants it. That effort's all you need. That'll win the rest of the games.
Can we get a team at A?
Yeah, right.
Guys, just a couple of minutes left, but Pete, you started talking about hitting guys in the different jerseys. I am, I don't know, I guess appalled at what's going on in football anymore with all these penalties. And, it's like they're trying to take the contact part away from football. Pete, what are your thoughts about what these rules are doing? And I understand about the concussions and the safety. Obviously, everybody is for that. But, Pete, do you think they're going a little too far?
I know they're going a little too far. Number one, you get more guys hurt now than ever. You know why? Because you're not going full go. Football is a gladiator sport. If I pretend to hit you in the gut, George, you're going to duck. That's why they start wearing helmets. You got to remember before they didn't wear a helmet, then they went the little leather helmet. Well, the reason you wear it is for protection because they know you're going to get hit.
Yeah, I think football, and this is all a trickle down from the NFL, right? All those issues, trickles down to college and then on into high school, and they're trying to get participation numbers back up because numbers are down across the country in Little League and all that stuff because of all the NFL stuff. So it starts at the top. But when you talk about college football, NFL football, doesn't matter. Football is a violent sport. There's no way to legislate safety into a game that was made for high impact and contact. That's what it is. So I think, sometimes they try too hard to legislate out some of these big hits to the detriment of the game itself. And people can see it, and the product looks watered down sometimes, especially at the NFL level with the lowering of the helmet and things like that. Certain things are just physics. You can't stop it. If I hit a quarterback and I'm going fast as I can and we make contact, I'm going to fall on top of him. It's just going to happen. I can't stop that. So I think that's an area where, NCAA and NFL has to be careful that they don't water down the product to the point that people stop watching.
Well, see, the one reason, too, George, what they do, and you need to investigate this. I guarantee you'll find most of the guys that got concussion wasn't really players. I know and Richard, I know more guys that can't walk, can't put a T, than I know guys that can't think. And the guy that committed suicide and did all this stuff, they was crazy before. They were crazy before they had a concussion. And I'm talking about these people I know personally, and I knew they was a little off. But you can't just blame everything on the concussion, because when you putting up that kind of money, you're going to have everyone can't think. They can't talk. And that's the thing that make me mad, because then you got players that really need it. Before this concussion thing came, Congress had cracked down on them for disability. They were getting ready to give tons of money to guys that needed it. And all of a sudden you get this concussion thing, and everyone jumped on it.
Yeah. I think it's been an overcorrection. I think it's gone maybe a little bit too far. You watch some NFL. I watched a lot of the Browns and the Steelers game because I'm a Browns fan. And God forbid.
Hey, a tie is not a loss.
I know.
I know. Gordon Gee.
I know. Best win we've ever had was a tie. So, I got through 4 hours of that game, and it was just a struggle to sit there and watch that game. And guys make great plays, and they throw a flag, and you're like, man, 10 years ago, we would have been just hugging each other because it was the greatest football play we've ever seen. And now, because somebody landed the wrong way or something, or landed on top of them or whatever, I think that we've taken the officials ought to be keen enough to know what's unnecessary roughness, in my opinion. And if somebody is out of line with something, they should have the leeway to call that. And I think that some of the stuff we're seeing called right now, they've just gone a little bit too far overboard. But again, I don't know what a happy medium is with this. I couldn't watch any more football after I got through that game. It was such a struggle. I was like, there's 2 more games on today at 4 o'clock, 7 o'clock. I ain't watching them. I couldn't do it anymore. I was wrung out. I couldn't do it anymore. So I think part of it was the tediousness of every freaking play has got a penalty flag, and I just can't. I don't want to watch that.
Yeah. Well, guys, Ohio State is favored by 13 this weekend. I don't see this game with TCU being that much of a game Saturday night. I think Ohio State is going to outmatch just about everybody in the country in terms of talent alone. What are your thoughts going into Saturday night?
Yeah, George, when you look at the game coming up here, I know we talked about the quarterback play, Robinson, the QB who's very mobile. It'll be OSU our D-line's first test for a mobile quarterback. They have good skill positions, not huge on either one of their lines, and I think that size difference will come into play. The physicality of OSU and how they play is going to come into play early, and just the difference in talent level eventually is going to be kind of exploited there. But I'm excited to see OSU have at least this young team have a road game that's going to force them to really, focus, lock in. Can they do it at Jerry World in that big old, like I said, that big old monstrosity? And can they lock in? Can they execute on the road in somewhat hostile territory? It's not truly a home game for TCU, but it's going to feel like a home game for them. But I don't see it being a 13-point. I think the difference in talent is just too great.
I think it'll be more than 13. If they don't make mistakes, which – this team ain't been making a lot of mistakes. You're going to get some few.
Only one turnover.
But when you don't make mistakes and to play together the way they playing, I think it's going to be one hell of a game for the Buckeyes.
Yeah, I'm looking at probably like a 34-17, if not worse than that. And this is what I think. This is like the Iowa game last year. This is a team Ohio State has had no recent history playing them. None of the players on the team have ever played a game against anybody from TCU. Probably don't even watch them on TV. They were on Friday night. Some of the players said, yeah, we watched it. It was on ESPN. We were tucked away in our room there at the Blackwell Inn. So maybe, they have some appreciation for what TCU can do. TCU with Gary Patterson, they average 10 wins a year. In the last 5 years, they've beaten 9 teams ranked in the top 15. So if Ohio State thinks, well, we'll just go down to Dallas and, we'll have the big pregame meal Friday night and throw our helmets out there on the field Saturday night, TCU is very, very much going to compete and very much going to be competitive in this game. It's just like the Iowa game last year, though. It's you have to take it seriously and you have to play your best football. If you just think, hey, we're going to show up because we're Ohio State, we're ranked number 4, and we've beaten 2 teams by 50 points, we're the best thing in the world, then they got a problem. But I don't sense that that's going to be the case. This team's playing with a pretty good chip on its shoulder right now, and I think that they're going to go down there and take care of business is my inclination.
Well, guys, thanks for being on tonight. Thanks, Pete and Steve. Appreciate you guys. Pete, I love you, right?
Hey, I love you too, man. Thanks for having me on.
One of my all-time best friends. I just love you to death. It's so good to see you, and thank you for being on. Steve, always fun having you on. You're just money every time you're with us, and I really appreciate your time tonight. Yep. Jay and I will look at some of the Big Ten action from last weekend and see what's going on with our favorite team up north in just a couple minutes. It's Buckeye Live on EBSN Online.
Hey, George, how's the family doing?
The Rivalry, a historic showdown between 2 great teams and 2 passionate fan bases. This season, join Germain Honda of Dublin and Germain Honda of Ann Arbor as we relive the greatest moments in the history of the game, with special offers for listeners. Discover Honda's award-winning lineup of cars and SUVs, like the 2017 CR-V, starting at just over $24,000. But rest assured, whether you're in Ann Arbor or Columbus, you can count on Germain Honda to deliver the right car, the right price, the right way.
It really is the difference between winning and losing, being able to get your hands inside, defeat blockers, and it works at all positions and all skill levels. I'm Joey Bosa. See the difference to your game.
and every Monday night during the college football season as we talk Buckeye football. Let's look at the Big Ten for a couple of minutes. Ohio State leads the East. Penn State, Indiana, Maryland are also at 2-0 and yet to play a conference game. So obviously it's way early in the season. Michigan State lost at Arizona State Saturday night. And in the West Division, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Illinois, and Iowa are all at 2-0. But 1-1 Northwestern is the only team in the West to play a conference game so far. Jay, were you surprised that Colorado beat Nebraska?
Colorado's not a bad team, actually.
Right.
They play out of their mind, especially towards the end. That catch by that receiver in the back of the end zone, to seal the deal was huge. Still surprising. You still expect Nebraska to win that game. The Arizona State game, Michigan State was disappointing. I'm a huge Mark D'Antonio fan. He recruited me. He's just was a very influential coach to me, so I always root for them until they play us. And it was so disappointing to see that loss. Arizona State, once again, not a bad football team either. Penn State looked like themselves again. Finally, last week they struggled against Appalachian State. I want to say it was. Then Michigan, losing the opener and coming back against, Western, Eastern Michigan? Western Michigan, who they should beat. And they beat. Purdue losing. It doesn't look great for the conference right now. Last couple of years, we could say Big Ten was the most dominant conference in college football, top to bottom. This year, I don't know that we can say that, and I don't think they deserve that this year. And I think that's just how it is. Whole conference needs to pick it up. I want everyone to look good until they play us, because I think that's good for the conference, and it looks good when we get to the playoffs with our record. At the end of the day, it's not going to affect the Buckeyes. I think the way our schedule's set up, the Buckeyes run the table heading in. It's going to be us and Alabama, I think, are the only two teams I'd worry about. Even Clemson struggled a little bit. So I think Ohio State, Alabama is just that we're on a destined collision course.
Oh, what fun that will be!
Nick and Herbs, part 3, part 4. I don't know what part. This is like a trilogy.
And as you mentioned, Michigan finally got it in gear and beat Western Michigan. And today they picked up a big 4-star running back commitment out of California, but they're still without a pair of their top interior defensive linemen and one of their top receivers. They're all out indefinitely. So Michigan will host SMU Saturday at 3:30 on the Big Ten Network. Michigan's favored by 35. So it's now been, and we hope you're all counting along at home with us, it's now been 2,480 days since Michigan's last win over Ohio State.
Oh, that's nice. Always nice.
Thanks for joining us tonight. We'll see you all next week.
Oh, George, real quick, guess who plays tonight?
The Raiders. Your Raiders and John Gruden make their debut tonight.
My boys who let Khalil Mack get out of town. How they let that happen is beyond me. Mack looked amazing last night against, Aaron Rodgers, who we call the second coming of Jesus, because he absolutely saved souls out there and came out on one leg and won an amazing game. It was just beautiful. But my Raiders tonight, look forward to that. Can't wait.
Enjoy the game. Enjoy Monday Night Football, and we'll see you all here 7 o'clock next week.
All right.